I'm in the town where I was born in Arecibo, Puerto Rico, and this is one of the coastal neighborhoods that's facing severe beach erosion. The neighbors here tell me that there used to be a couple more rows of houses here, and the government had to buy them out because the ocean got so close. Now the people who still live here think they might face the same fate.
Mira la columna, la puede mirar que están ahí.
O sea que esto era parte de una casa.
Sí, es como dice el refrán. Lo que es de la mar a la mar vuelve.
Beach erosion in Puerto Rico has been getting a lot of attention lately, but some of the pictures that have been going viral are of wealthier communities. That's not the case here. Here you have families who have been living here for generations, and this is all they have.
Esas calles son de los Fernández, hermanos, tíos, abuelos, primos, ahí de los Rosas, todos se conocen.
They also just don't want to have to leave.
Mira, me trataron de nada. Te estaba bajando, mira ahí. Ave María.
Porque es como si tú te vas de vacaciones. ¿Cuánto tú pagas por un apartamento frente al mar? Un montón en San Juan y todo. Aquí lo tenemos gratis porque nosotros solamente tenemos que bajar por los callejones y meternos al mar.
But that luxury has become a threat,
Todo eso se lo llevan a mar.
and scientists say it will get worse.
El diluvio universal empezó con lloviznitas, pues lo que estamos viendo ahora es sencillamente ese comienzo de lo que va a ser lo normal en 20 o 30 años.
Aurelio Mercado has been studying the ocean for decades, and in the last few years, he's seen a trend.
Y el denominador común es el aumento del nivel del mar.
The federal government has been tracking sea level rise in Puerto Rico. They have also made predictions for the future. Now, how much more and how quickly sea level will keep rising depends on several factors, including how quickly ice caps melt due to climate change. There's erosion in so many beaches that it's hard to make it to all of them, but we're trying to take advantage of our time and go to as many as we can, just to see how bad the problem is.
Sigues por ahí y son unos apartamentos que hay y uno de ellos se partió por la mitad y se ve ahí en el mar.
Oh wow, you could see the house is tilting towards the ocean. You see that?
That's crazy.
Esta es mi casa.
Esta es esta casa donde estamos.
Correcto. Pero eso pues con los condos, ves que no están cerca.
The lady who showed us the picture didn't want to be on camera, but she told us that she's been here since she was a little girl. She grew up here. She says this used to be beach, and to now see the ocean so close is surreal. But she also doesn't seem too upset about it because she was not happy that they built here. And remember that scientist I talked to? He says he and others have been trying to warn against building too close to the coast for more than 10 years.
Nos dijeron que estábamos en contra del progreso. Y miren ahora, ahí tienen el progreso. Ahí tienen el progreso.
I really wanted to give you a drone's look of the coast and just how close the water is now. This decided to not work. I'll have to find another way.
Yo creo que ese pensamiento de que las playas hay que explotarlas, hay que traer gente rica que construyan edificios y apartamentos a lo largo de la playa y sin pensar las consecuencias de eso. Que están matando a la gallina de los huevos de oro.
Water. Are you ready to live underground? Know before you go. Number 1. Growing underground, London. In this city, located in an old war bunker in London, they managed to sustain a whole farm. This seems impossible, however, they did it using a hydroponic, vertical, pesticide-free system. Also, they used the space much more efficiently, saving 70% of the water used on it. Number 2. Earth Scraper, Mexico City. As you had already imagined, this is the complete opposite to a skyscraper, as it goes downwards towards the Earth's core. 65 stories to be precise. It has a pyramid-shaped design and an open central space where daylight can flood into the depths of the Earth. Number 3. The Low Line, New York. The The Low Line is a project based on the success of the High Line, an abandoned elevated railway converted into a lush public space. The aim is to give an unused trolley terminal a makeover. It's expected to be opened by 2020. The natural light would be directed below ground using a system called remote skylights, based on parabolic reflectors and optic fiber cables. Wow! Number 4. Réseau Montréal. This is the largest subterranean complex in the world and has been in use since the 1960s. It's a way of hiding from the terrible cold temperatures they suffer. We can find multi-level shopping centres, hotels, restaurants and metro stations, all linked by tunnels. 5. Underground City, Helsinki. This underground city includes more than 125 miles of tunnels filled with everything you would expect in an overground city. And the best thing is that they have plans to continue to expand the subterranean public spaces. Number 6. Subtropolis, Kansas City. This city occupies 11,000 acres of abandoned limestone mines since 1964. More than 1,600 people work in this naturally climate-controlled, rock-carved space every day. We can find everything from cave-aged cheese to car storage space and an array of small businesses. Also, it naturally maintains temperatures between 18 and 21 degrees Celsius all year round. Number 7. Underground Science City, Singapore. In Singapore, they've had a space problem for a long time, so they designed this underground science city for up to 4,200 scientists and professionals in research and development facilities. But also there are many restaurants and shopping malls. Number 8. Burlington, UK. This is a city built by the British government in 1955 in case of a nuclear attack. A 35-acre network of hidden entrances, streets, canteens and purpose-built rooms to house the Prime Minister, the entire British government and the royal family. It even had a telephone switchboard and a hospital inside. However, it's been closed off since 1991. Number 9. Derinkuyu, Turkey. This is an ancient multi-level underground city extending to a depth of approximately 60 meters. It is large enough to have sheltered as many as 20,000 people, together with their livestock and food stores. This city could be closed from the inside with huge stone doors and had ventilation and running water.
While viewing the FAA video footage, please remember some elementary rules about lens flares. 1. Lens flares of the sun don't rotate. Our sun only rotates once every 27 Earth days. 2. Lens flares of the sun don't contain craters and heavily textured exteriors. 3. Lens flares cannot go behind clouds or other structures in a video or picture. 4. Lens flares of the sun can never react to sunlight in a video. For example, a lens flare cannot become partially illuminated by the object causing the lens flare. Please remember these fundamental facts as we go through these FAA videos. Our first FAA video comes from the Southeast camera in Soldotna, Alaska. This footage shows a red celestial object being partially illuminated on the left. For 2 reasons we know this can't be a lens flare. It is partially illuminated, and it also disappears behind the clouds in the last frame. Jesus describes the last days in Luke chapter 21 verse 25 when he says that we will see signs in the sky when the end is near. Christians are commanded to watch for these signs and wonders signaling the end of the age, so that we are not ignorant of the very late hour in which we are living, in order to be spiritually prepared for what lies ahead, and so that we can help others become spiritually prepared. When viewing these images from the northwest-facing camera in Twin Island, Alaska, please keep in mind that we are looking to the northwest, starting at 10:30 in the morning, local time. The sun is rising in the east, but we are looking northwest, almost in the opposite direction. Thus, this cannot possibly be the sun rising. But something very large is obviously rising here. In the foreground, all we see are ocean waves. The celestial object we are viewing is part of a planetary system that has now intermingled with our own solar system. It will be making its closest pass to Earth during the time of the biblically foretold Great Tribulation, which may be upon us now. This is why mid-May might be a very rough time for Earth. Several scientists are tracking a highly magnetic celestial object traveling with this inbound planetary system. Its gravitational properties are so forceful that it bends light, space, and time. For this reason, it cannot be viewed directly, but its path of destruction can be monitored and projected. Mike from around the world, who appears periodically on the Paul Begley channel, has alluded to this magnetic object and has warned us that in mid-May, this object will have an effect on our planet. Terrell Blackstar has a channel that shows weekly updates on the path of this object and the resulting waves of earthquakes and erupting volcanoes that occur whenever Earth is in a particular alignment in relation to this highly magnetic object. In mid-May of this year, Earth will be in close proximity to it, and the amount of destruction that will result is impossible to forecast at this time. However, Mike from around the world says that he will know more in February and will discuss it then on the Paul Begley channel. He's also going to be on the Paul Begley channel again on the 30th of this month. Homeland Security instructed all U.S. citizens to have a 6-month supply of food and water on hand. Since we don't yet know the level of destruction that will come, this is wise advice. Earth could experience some magnitude 7 earthquakes and some increased volcanic activity, or it could be as bad as magnitudes above what can register on the earthquake monitoring equipment, with widespread volcanic activity on land and undersea, and possibly widespread power outages. Right now, we don't know which. As soon as I get an update on this, I'll pass it on. The video you are watching now shows how a huge celestial object is made nearly invisible by the atmospheric chemicals that are spread throughout our atmosphere continuously by military jets. A highly classified craft marked with a circle works with other equipment in place to hide these enormous objects from public view. As always, a line can be drawn from the reflection of this craft to the black dot that produces a gigantic circular glare, and the hidden celestial object always falls upon that line, without exception. Untold trillions have been spent on the technology to hide this approaching system. The reason is because the enemies of Christ do not want you to know how close we are to the end. The enemies of Christ do not want you to give your life to Jesus before your time runs out. Information is at the end of this video instructing you on how to accept Christ into your life. The circular glare produced by NASA's manufactured light source can be very inconsistent depending upon where it is viewed from. This camera in Attawapiskat, Ontario in Canada shows NASA's manufactured light reducing to a fraction of its size in just minutes. In the fourth frame, it actually reduces down to about 1/3 of its previous size, and then 2 hours later, the light suddenly shrinks down to 1/5 its original size as the real sun goes behind a mammoth classified structure in space. But NASA's manufactured light passes in front of this structure, lighting it up. Of course, it would be ludicrous to even imagine that we could see something like this behind our real sun, 93 million miles away. Here's a better view of this enormous structure captured last March of 2018 on a rare day when the atmospheric chemicals had failed to hide it. An astronomer once told me that this was a nebula. However, a nebula would not be following Earth on its journey around the sun like this object does. I don't have labels or names for any of these objects, but I can tell you that all of these are signs that we are living in the very last days. I would imagine that the powers that be will have to use war as a cover-up for the destruction coming from this approaching planetary system, because they will never, ever allow the public to know that they've tracked this system for years and didn't tell anyone. The powers that be will never allow the masses to know that something like this was hidden from them for years. A very common sight in the far north is to see NASA's manufactured light stretch across the horizon so that the glare covers up any celestial objects from view, such as this object which is emerging from the glare, captured by the southeast-facing camera in Esther-Dome, Alaska. The contrast and close-up images of this footage show that this celestial object has a definite rotation and is heavily cratered, telling us that this cannot be a lens flare of the sun. The south-facing camera in Gustavus Dock, Alaska, captured a very red, fast-rotating, highly textured object crossing the sky. As NASA's manufactured light begins to catch up with the red orb, the black dot equipment emits a black beam in preparation for the eclipse. We see the pink reflection of the craft, although we don't see the craft itself here. This footage shows two different celestial objects. One red object that's eclipsing the sun, and a much larger white object that has been blurred by technology. Once again, the celestial object falls upon the red line. In several of these frames, we see the black dot reflecting upon the water surface, proving that it's an actual piece of equipment and not a camera or lighting issue. Here's another example of the black dot reflecting upon the water. This one is the southwest-facing camera in Old Harbor, Alaska. The camera in Isabel Pass, Alaska, shows a reflection of the bell-shaped projector. This is a reflection, and we've seen this thousands of times. It prevents eclipses from being seen. In the images with contrast, we can see a highly textured surface on this very large celestial object. Now, unlike some of the other objects we've been viewing, this one is moving in the opposite direction of the sun. The sun is rising, traveling in a southward direction, and on this screen, left to right, and in the morning. And the celestial object being hidden by the bell-shaped projector is actually traveling downward or setting, and it's moving in the opposite direction of the sun. It's going from right to left. This is yet another sign that we are living in the very last days. In Kasagluck, Alaska, we see two different celestial objects traveling close together, possibly gravitationally bound to each other. We see NASA's craft rushing into view to hide these objects. The object in the foreground has an obvious rotation and a very textured surface. On the right, we see the pink reflection of the craft swinging into view. Here's a close-up of both the craft and the reflection of the craft. As the eclipse occurs, NASA's manufactured light passes in front of the celestial object, while the real sun goes behind it, concealing the eclipse from public view. Again, the pink reflection of the craft is always lined up with the center of NASA's artificial glare and the celestial object being cloaked. The camera in Makoryuk, Alaska, once again demonstrates how effective the atmospheric chemicals are at hiding these celestial objects. Only with contrast added can we see this red, highly cratered object. It may not look big, but in the close-up images, look how tiny the cluster of buildings are in relation to the red rolling object. Just to show the enormity of this object, here is the moon just before setting on January 12th. And here it is next to the red celestial object we just saw on the Makoryuk, Alaska camera. This tells us how enormous these objects are. This is why earthquakes and volcanic activity have increased nearly 1,000%. These objects are pulling on Earth's tectonic plates. They have caused very erratic tides around the globe, which are not mentioned on mainstream news. From the Kipnuk, Alaska camera, we see a reflection of the bell-shaped projector hiding another eclipse. This red, large, rotating object is moving in the opposite direction of the sun. It is very well hidden by the atmospheric chemicals. Even with contrast, it's difficult to see. However, a close examination of this object reveals its direction, rotation, and cratered surface. Here's an eclipse that can be seen any day that the atmospheric chemicals are not terribly heavy. This was captured this month by the south-facing camera in Sitka, Alaska. We see the reflections of a variety of equipment moving in to hide the eclipse. NASA's manufactured light once again passes in front of the celestial object, while the real sun passes behind, so that it's not obvious an eclipse is occurring. Here's a better view of this eclipse from some older images on this same camera. I like this footage because it shows the reflection of the bell-shaped projector very well. And also in the very last frame, the black dot in this footage is reflecting upon the ocean. I missed the first part of this eclipse, viewed from Chilkat, Alaska, but I did manage to capture the last part of it. Here we see a heavily cratered celestial object in a very fast rotation. And
oh my God!